Pokemon Legends ZA is officially out, and with it, we have a whole new batch of Mega Evolutions. Today, we'll be looking at each of these Mega Evolutions, and based on some design characteristics or maybe some actual descriptions of these Pokemon, trying to figure out what their abilities will be. Now, obviously, abilities are absent from this game, Pokemon Legends ZA, but they will be in Pokemon Champions, where I imagine we'll be playing with all these new Mega Evolutions a little bit longer. Welcome back to the post where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be breaking down these new Mega Evolutions and their potential abilities. Now, obviously, since we're talking about these Mega Evolutions in Legends ZA, some spoilers. If you're not wanting to find out about the new Mega Evolutions and experience them for yourselves, click watch later, save this video for later on, and come back to it, because we will be going over all the new Megas. Now, before we begin, some of you smart cookies might know that the abilities are actually coded into this game, but I wanna address that. So if you look at the abilities that are coded in for these Pokemon, first off, they are the exact same as their base forms, and while some Pokemon do retain their initial abilities when they Mega Evolve, more often than not, they don't. So the sign that all of these Pokemon retain their abilities is probably a good sign that we are going to have to wait for champions to see what exactly these abilities are, and the ZA data mine's abilities can't really give us any indication of that. Not only this, but also they're all coded to have 2 or 3 abilities depending on their base form's abilities. You know, many of them are. For example, Greninja is coded in to have for its Mega Evolutions abilities either Torrent or Protean. But all Mega Evolutions just have one ability, regardless of what the base Pokemon's ability is. If it's a hidden ability, none of that. The Megas have one ability. So again, this really can't be taken seriously. So there's your spoiler warning. Let's jump right in with the very first ones, the starters. We've got Meganium, Feraligatr, and Emboar all receiving Mega Evolutions in this game. Absolutely insane. Cannot believe I'm saying that. Meganium, Mega Evolution. That's crazy. Mega Meganium uses Mega Absorb on Mega Yanmega. Mega Yanmega isn't real, but I'm hoping that happens one day. But anywho, with Mega Meganium, we do see it now get the fairy typing, so Meganium becomes a grass fairy typing. Because of this, I think that Misty Surge is possible. It's possible, or with the whole flower aspect and its design, even though it has the fairy type, it does very much lean into the plant side of things, so perhaps Grassy Surge. But my kind of dark horse pick for Mega Meganium would be Triage. Now, for those who don't know what these abilities do, Misty Surge sets up the Misty Terrain, Grassy Surge sets up the Grassy Terrain, and Triage is an ability currently only held by Comfey, and this makes it where any move that has some kind of healing factor to it will receive priority, so it will move before other Pokemon. This includes some moves that, you know, of course, just naturally heal, like Synthesis, but it also includes moves that do damage and heal, things like Giga Drain and Draining Kiss. So I think that this would be really, really nice on Mega Meganium, make it quite a threat. Moving right into Mega Feraligatr, we see this giant jaw hoodie thing it has, and it can snap it down against its arms to attack opponents. So I'm imagining that this is going to be Strong Jaw. That just seems to make the most sense to me. That seems to be the obvious choice, but I could see Feraligatr keeping Sheer Force as an ability, or I even could see it just getting Intimidate, because it becomes much bigger. This giant head that it has when it snaps its jaw against its arms makes it a much larger looking Pokemon. So, you know, I could see Strong Jaw, or rather Intimidate, being a thing here. And for those who don't know these abilities, again, Strong Jaw is going to be a move that powers up biting moves. Sheer Force is going to allow Feraligatr to replace moves that have a secondary effect, replace their secondary effect with more power. So moves like Liquidation, which have a chance to lower the opposing Pokemon's defense, will not lower the opposing Pokemon's defense, but will do more damage in place of that. And then Intimidate, of course, lowers its opponent's attack when it enters battle. Next up, we have Emboar, and Emboar, here's my pick. Supreme Overlord. Supreme Overlord is an ability that makes Emboar more powerful depending on how many of its teammates have already fallen. So if you were to send out Embor last and it had Supreme Overlord, and all 5 of your Pokemon aside from Embor have fainted, Embor's going to be dealing out a lot heavier damage. This is just going with the whole like Chinese general vibes that it has. I don't know. It just, I feel like there's a connection there, but maybe not. I can't really think of one other than this. It does have the spear now. You could say sharpness, but I actually don't feel like sharpness works because it doesn't really get a lot of cutting moves, which is what sharpness powers up. So I don't know. Let me know what you think on this one. I'm not as married to it, but Supreme Overlord is where I'll be going with. So now that we're done with the starters, we'll be moving into the Pokemon by each generation. So for Generation 1, we have 4 Mega Evolutions. First off, we have Starmie. Now, Starmie is actually really interesting because we do know what's going on with Starmie's ability, or at least we have a good indication. So while most Pokemon get 100 base total added to them when they Mega Evolve, Starmie gets a decent bit more than that. It gets about 37 or 40 points more. The only other Pokemon that do this are Medicham and Mawile. And if you look at Medicham and Mawile, they have the abilities Huge Power or Pure Power. I'm blanking on it at the moment. I think each one has a different one. They're the same abilities, just different names. And what this ability does is it doubles your Pokemon's physical attack stat. So the fact that they have added this extra boost to these 2 Pokemon that have this ability, and they're doing it to Starmie as well, and Starmie's base attack seems to be a lot higher than its other stats, that's a pretty good indication that Starmie will have for its Mega Evolution the ability Pure Power or Huge Power. Again, same ability, just different names. Then we have Clefable. So Clefable, here's my fun pick. Pixelate. Pixelate's an ability that turns all normal type moves into a fairy type move. While this isn't like the most crazy broken move in the history of the world, I think it would actually be really fun for Clefable because it is a Pokemon that at one point was a normal type Pokemon and was changed to a fairy type. So it'd be kind of meta if the ability recognized that by changing the normal type into a fairy type move. That would be kind of neat. It is also part flying type now, so maybe you could say Aerolate instead. I don't think so, though. I think it'd lean more into the fairy type. And then I could maybe see it getting Friend Guard, being able to protect its allies from attacks a little bit. I could see something like that. That's something that's made Clefairy very popular in VGC usage, so maybe they'd give it to Mega Clefable as well. Next, we have Victory Bell. So I did cover the Pokemon that were officially revealed up to launch by the Pokemon Company. I did cover what I thought their abilities would be at that time, but we're going to revisit them, include them, so they're all in the list. And with Victory Bell, my guesses were Corrosion, which is an ability that allows poison types to poison Pokemon that can't be poisoned, such as poison types or steel types. Or my other pick for it was an ability similar to Corrosion, or maybe they just buff Corrosion to do this, where poison type moves can damage steel type. So it's not just you can poison them, it's that you can actually use poison type moves on them. Maybe even they become super effective. Where this is all coming from is Victory Bell, Mega Victory Bell specifically. Its acid is often depicted as being able to melt through steel, and they draw attention to this on the website as well. They gave Mega Victory Bell's description, so it seems to be a big characteristic of the Pokemon, so I feel like it very well could make its way into its ability. Then we have Dragonite. So with Mega Dragonite, I could see Aerolate, which makes normal type moves flying type moves. This would give Dragonite a really big boost to its priority move Extreme Speed, which could be pretty dang broken, and also kind of helps Dragonite out because it doesn't get a lot of great flying type physical moves as is. I could also see Serene Grace, which gives Dragonite a boosted chance of causing an additional effect of one of its moves. So, for example, if it were to use the move Air Slash, which has a chance to cause flinch, Serene Grace would boost the odds of Dragonite flinching the opponent with Air Slash. Likewise, Fire Punch, chance to burn, Serene Grace would boost the chances of Fire Punch causing a burn to the opposing Pokemon. Now we move into Generation 2. Aside from our starters, Meganium for Alligator, we only have one Generation 2 Pokemon, and this is Mega Skarmory. Now for Mega Skarmory, I think that there are 2 options here. One is Good as Gold. Skarmory does become golden now, so maybe they give it Golden Go's ability Good as Gold, which makes it where it cannot get any kind of status condition. Or they go with Tough Claws, which will boost the power of any contact making moves that Skarmory has, like Body Press or Iron Head. Just because of those sharper talons, I could see this being the case with Skarmory, but I also could see Good as Gold, because that can make it kind of more annoying to deal with, boosted defenses. So, I don't know. Either one of these I could see really working. Now, Gen 3, we actually don't have any Mega Evolutions, sadly. Maybe we'll get some in Mega Dimension, but as of right now, no Mega Evolutions for Gen 3, which kind of makes sense. They did get a bunch in Generation 6 when Mega Evolution was first introduced in X and Y, and then continued over into Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But we do move into Gen 4, where we have one Pokemon that does get a Mega Evolution, and this is Frostlass. Now, Frostlass is often kind of depicted as being able to summon blizzards, so I feel like Snow Warning makes a lot of sense for Mega Frostlass. It's a simple ability, but, I really could see it being the case. It just kind of ties into the lore of the Pokemon well. And then we move into the Unova region. The Unova region got a good bit of Pokemon getting Mega Evolutions in this game. We already, of course, heard about Emboar, but let's move into some other ones. So first off, we have Mega Scolipede. With Mega Scolipede, I could see the ability Merciless. So Merciless makes Poison-type moves a critical hit if the opposing Pokemon is poisoned. So this ability would make Scolipede quite powerful. You figure you could set up Toxic Spikes, and then as your opponent switches, all of their Pokemon are poisoned, which means now that Scolipede is, with its Merciless ability, it would always be landing critical hits on the opposing party. So, it'd be a pretty scary thing to deal with, I think. Next up, we have Excadrill. Honestly, I feel like Mold Breaker is so iconic to Excadrill, and it makes sense since it's a drill, and even more so now that it's Mega Evolved, that I want to keep Mold Breaker on it. Sometimes Mega Evolutions do keep their standard abilities, so I think that could be the case here. And then we have Mega Scrafty. Mega Scrafty, I think this one could also keep one of Scrafty's abilities, specifically Intimidate. It is an intimidating Pokemon, and that's kind of its whole thing too, is that it intimidates its opponents. So I think Intimidate just works really well into it. For Mega Electros, this is another Pokemon that I think will just retain its regular ability. It's almost plane-like now, so Levitate kind of works well into it, where it's, it is basically flying. So I just think Levitate still makes sense, and that's kind of something that's been iconic about Electros, is it's one of the few Pokemon with 0 weaknesses, because it's an electric type, which means it's only weak to ground, but then it has Levitate, which means that it doesn't get hit by ground type moves. So it just makes sense to me that Electros should keep this to kind of make it iconic. And then we have Mega Chandelure. Mega Chandelure, my pick is going to be Shadow Tag, just again as kind of a cool reference. So way back in Generation 5 when Chandelure was introduced, a feature was introduced called Hidden Abilities. They're still in the games today, and at the time, Chandelure's hidden ability was Shadow Tag. However, in Generation 6 and onward, this was changed to be Infiltrator. I think it will be a cool little nod to Chandelure's roots to give its Mega Evolution the ability Shadow Tag. Now, this would kind of make it comparable to Mega Gengar, who also has Shadow Tag as an ability, so maybe they'd go a different route. You could argue Levitate as well, because Chandelure's floating, but we can't give everything Levitate, because I have more that I think will get Levitate. But yeah, let me know what you think on this one. I'm a little more stumped here. Now we move into the Kalos region, starting with the Kalos starters, Chestnut, Greninja, and Delphox. So beginning with Chestnut, I think that it'll get Stamina. This is an ability that causes Chestnut to boost its defense every time it is hit by an attack. I think that this just makes a lot of sense for Chestnut. It is a bulky boy. He's got a lot of shields on him. I think it just really fits. He's got a higher defense. It just works, in my opinion. It also would allow him to build up his defense quickly to give out a stab-boosted body press. So I just think that makes so much sense. Then we have Mega Delphox, Levitate. I know I said I didn't want to give it anything, but I said that I was going to give it to one more, and it's Delphox, Levitate. It's literally levitating. It's levitating on a broom. It's Levitate. Then we have a Mega Greninja. Mega Greninja, that's another one where I could see it keeping one of its original abilities, and that is Protean. Protean is so synonymous with Greninja. It's known so well for having that ability. I just feel like it makes sense to let Mega Greninja keep something that makes Greninja so iconic, in my opinion. A dark horse pick would be Battle Bond as a reference to Ash Greninja, which boosts your attack, special attack, and speed every time you defeat an opponent. But I'm going to go with Proteum, which allows Greninja to change into the type of the first move it uses, just to kind of, make Greninja keep something that made Greninja Greninja. You know what I mean? Next up, we have Pyroar. So for Pyroar, I'm going to guess competitive. This is a Pokemon that does have a high special attack, and I'm assuming it'll keep that as it Mega Evolves. And so I think it just makes sense for it to, have an ability that capitalizes on that. And competitive does that. Whenever one of Pyroar's stats would get lowered, it would raise its special attack by 2 stages. So competitive would be a great ability for it. For Mega Barbaracle, I'm going to go with Long Reach. It's got all these arms now, and they can reach pretty long. So I think that Long Reach makes a ton of sense. This allows Barbaracle to use moves that do cause, do make contact with the Pokemon without taking any negative effects that can come from making contact with the opposing Pokemon. So, it won't take Rocky Helmet damage or Iron Barbs damage or Flame Body Burns, anything like that. Mega Barbaracle would be safe from, or Tough Claws, because, they've all got those little claws on the end of them, and this was something that Barbaracle had initially, but it's how many of these Pokemon will keep their initial abilities? I don't know, but those would be my 2 guesses for Mega Barbaracle. Next, we have Mega Hawlucha. With Mega Hawlucha, I think that Moxie is it. This is a Pokemon that loves to show off, so I think it makes sense that, after every time it defeats a Pokemon, you see it kind of puff out its chest and yeah, are you not entertained? All that. And I just think Moxie kind of works well into that, where every time it defeats the Pokemon, its attack gets even higher because it's getting more pumped up, right? I think that makes a ton of sense for Mega Hawlucha. Mega Malamar would be next, and this is a Pokemon that I think will keep Contrary. It's kind of similar to what I said with Greninja. Contrary, which allows Malamar to kind of flip what stats do to it. So, for example, Superpower normally lowers its attack and defense. In this case, it would raise its attack and defense. It's something that's always been synonymous with Malamar, so I think it just makes sense to keep it here. And then we have Dragalge. So with Dragalge, I'm going to predict a new ability that will work similar to some other abilities we've seen. For example, the one I always think of is Dhelmise. Dhelmise has an ability called Steelworker, which allows Dhelmise to receive Stab, which is basically a boost as if it were that type, to steel type moves. This is interesting because Dhelmise is a ghost and grass type, so it doesn't actually get stabbed from steel type moves, but Steelworker allows it to. Likewise, I think Dragalge should get this, but for the water type, allowing Dragalge to dish out stab boosted poison type moves, dragon type moves, and also water type moves, which is a nice callback to how, as a Skrelp, it was actually a water type. Now, there are 2 more Kalos Pokemon that do receive Mega Evolutions in this game. I'm going to save them for a little bit later and just move directly into Generation 7, because we do have 1 Generation 7 Pokemon that receives a Mega Evolution in this game. This is Drampa. It's gone Berserk. I think it keeps Berserk. I just, it should keep Berserk, in my opinion, 100%. And then we move into Generation 8, where, again, we have 1 Mega Evolution, and this is Phalanx. And now for Phalanx, I'm going to make a wild call here. Dauntless Shield. So Dauntless Shield is an ability currently only held by Zamazenta, where the first time it's sent out into battle, it raises its defense. Now, again, it is a legendary exclusive ability. Only Zamazenta has it. But I think it would be so fun on Phalanx. It has a bunch of shields on it, and it also would be a cool call to its home generation of Galar, where Zamazenta is kind of one of the box legendaries of. I don't know. I think this would be fun and make Phalanx really, really interesting. Its Mega's already pretty interesting, but I think this will make it even cooler. And then we'll move into those 2 Generation 6 Pokemon, the a bit bigger ones, and that is Eternal Flower Floette and Zygarde. Starting with Eternal Flower Floette, I think it'd be cool if it got Fairy Aura. This would be a cool nod to Xerneas, the fairy-type legendary of the Kalos region, who's the only other Pokemon to have this ability, which, boosts fairy-type moves. And I think that this would work really, really well on Mega Floette, or maybe it would get some kind of ability that would allow it to receive stab from grass moves, because let's face it, it's become part of the flower now. It just makes sense that it would have a move that would tie into that. And then lastly, we have Mega Zygarde. And with Mega Zygarde, I think that it'll just get Aura Break back. This would allow it to kind of call back to its initial form that had Aura Break, which, would counter Eternal Flower Floette, as well as also countering Xerneas and Yveltal still, which is what Zygarde initially did, balance the two of them. So Aura Break for it makes so much sense, in my opinion. I'm absolutely betting on that. Now, before we close out this video, there are two more Pokemon, or two more Mega Evolutions, one more Pokemon to talk about. While this Pokemon is not available in the base game of Legends ZA, it will be available later in DLC, and we already know about it. And this is Mega Raichu X and Mega Raichu Y. So with Mega Raichu X, I think that it will get Iron Fist. This powers up punching moves, as we're told that Mega Raichu X does have a powerful punch to it. And then for Mega Raichu Y, I actually think that it'll get Electric Surge, which allows a Pokemon to set up electric terrain the second it hits the field. This currently is only held by like Pincurchin and Tapu Koko, and I think that's actually it. This would make Mega Raichu Y really, really powerful, and would kind of be a nice nod to the Alola region with Tapu Koko and Alolan Raichu, since its design is very reminiscent of Alolan Raichu, in my opinion. But those are all my opinions on what the abilities will be for each of these Mega Evolutions. Let me know what you think they'll be in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that fun stuff. And until next time, I'll see all of you later.